A Redditor shares a story of how they messed up by not knowing the signs of a heart attack. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, today I messed up by ruining my neighbor's daughter's night. So it's 11 p.m., dark outside, and I head out to pick up some late dinner. After 15 steps out of my apartment, I see a girl dressed in all black reaching into my neighbor's window with all the lights off. Additionally, I noticed they took off the window screen and had it laying on the ground. I asked them, "Are you good?" To which they only replied with a weird arm gesture without saying anything at all. Spidey senses were tingling at this point, and I just kept walking to my car. Something important to mention is that in my general area, there is a good share of drug addicts and homeless people. Though she definitely didn't look homeless, so I assumed the former. At this point, alarm sirens were going off in my head, especially since she was so close to my own apartment. I called 911 and reported a possible break-in, described the details, and went on my way to pick up dinner. 15 minutes later, I get back. 2 policemen are at the door. I ask them what happened, and one of them says laughingly, "She was a daughter trying to sneak out." I can't put into words the embarrassment that came crashing over me. The lights were out, and she didn't say anything to not wake anyone up. She probably just wanted a night with her boyfriend or whatever, and I completely ruined it. Personally, I think, although there might be some regret to be had here, did OP not ultimately do the right thing? Like they saw something sketchy and weird going on, especially something that seems off close to where they live, and they called it in. I mean, that's kind of what the non-emergency line is there for. Teachers commented, "I saw my neighbor's daughter sneaking out, but she was just wearing normal clothes." It was hilarious to me because she literally used bed sheets to descend from her second-story balcony. I couldn't be mad. CheeseGirl72 replied, "I tried the bed sheets from the balcony sneak out maneuver one time as a teen, decades ago, and realized as soon as my feet left the edge that I had grossly overestimated my upper body strength and plummeted to the flower bed beneath me. I was fine, but alas, when I came back home later, wee hours of the morning, I didn't have my house keys and I was left with no better option than ignominiously ringing the doorbell so someone would let me back in the house." My parents were not impressed. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy stories of Redditors who have messed up, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. Our next story is, today I messed up by giving my kids Starbucks lemonade. I was in Target with my 4-year-old daughter. I swung by the Starbucks for coffee. She asked for a lemonade and a snack. I saw they had lemonade refreshers, some with strawberries and some with acai. She got super excited, so I thought I would get her a large strawberry lemonade refresher. She loved it and chugged the whole thing before I finished my coffee. Well, about 20 to 30 minutes later, she is sprinting up and down the aisles, not listening to me and being generally difficult. She is a strong-willed child, and what 4-year-old doesn't have tons of energy, so I didn't think much beyond it. I was getting frustrated though. My wife showed up a few minutes later and immediately noticed the wild child squeezing every stuffy she could fit into her tiny arms. She also noticed immediately the 2 drinks in the cart. She quizzed me on what I got her. Her face pretty much summed it up. She knew right away that we had a child hopped up on caffeine. Apparently, Starbucks refreshers have about 45 to 55 milligrams of caffeine in them. I had no idea. Through my ignorance, she got her first boost. Well, suffice it to say, one tantrum later, we were headed home. Stories like this is why it always kind of blew my mind that when I was in like a drive-thru for like a Starbucks or something, you could see through the window of the person in front of you and they would have a kid that gets handed a coffee in the back seat or whatever. I'll be silently sitting there like, I hope for their sake it's decaf. Followor Square commented, and this story is exactly why whenever I saw an adult with a kid under 10 order 2 drinks, a coffee and a refresher, I would always ask if the refresher was for the kiddo. 95% of the time the answer was yes, and the parent was absolutely flabbergasted when I told them that the strawberry acai and mango dragon fruit refreshers had caffeine in them. They're infused with green coffee extract. We weren't trained to ask, but it felt morally wrong not to. Next time, if the kid wants strawberry lemonade, ask for a lemonade with strawberry puree shaken in. You can even still ask for the berry chunks if she wants them. No caffeine this way, but be aware that there still will be a solid amount of sugar, as do most lemonades. Our next story is, today I messed up by not realizing my child's passport was expired. So as the title states, I discovered my child's passport expired. One of my quirks is that when I go on vacation, I pack the night before. I just seem not to forget anything if I pack last minute. It works for me. This year, my husband and I thought it would be a great idea to take our children to Mexico for March break. I started to pack last night as our flight was at 9 a.m., tucked the kids in, kissed them goodnight, and wished them a great sleep while reminding them that I would be waking them up at 4 a.m. to get to the airport. Their clothes and any other essentials were in the suitcase. Perfect. Now I just needed to grab their passports and put them in our passport holder. I got them out of the safe and for some reason wanted to look at my beautiful children's faces. When I opened my son's passport, I saw the expiry date. What? My husband had said to me many times his is fine, it doesn't expire until next year. My idiot self trusted that. It's now 11 p.m. the night before our flight. I wake my son up and tell him to get dressed, we messed up, and now I have to take you for a passport photo. When I return home after an hour, my husband is still on hold with the airline to change our flights. They tell us it's too late now and they'll call us in the morning. So we stick to our original plan of getting the kids up at 4 a.m. and head towards the airport while awaiting the phone call. Husband and daughter go to check in and question what can be done about my son, while we head towards the passport office for an urgent end-of-day needed passport. What the airline said was that if they change their flight, we forfeit our entire vacation. So I miserably gave my blessing for them to continue on their way. Meanwhile, at the passport office, all is going well to get the urgent end-of-day passport, until they asked for my son's birth certificate. Cue second mess up. I did not take that out of our passport holder while separating documents and carry-on stuff. Husband's flight was about to leave. Luckily, he did have his phone on and was able to send a photo of said birth certificate. It was enough for me to get a temporary 2-year passport for my son, which I could pick up well after our original flight left. Airline was able to change our flights to tomorrow. With a now unexpired passport, we will be able to leave. But it cost us so much in the end. I think I'm very similar to OP. I work best with my back against the wall. Although I'm also the kind of person that will write down everything and try to overthink about what I could possibly need or bring with me. So when I do finally get around to that last second pack, I can also reference this list and make sure that I did get everything. I will say OP's story here is a very good learning lesson though. If you're gonna take a flight, you need to just double check to make sure that all of your documents that you need are good to go. T800-123 commented, most countries also have a requirement that your passport be good for a certain period of time, usually either how long your visa is good for or how long you're permitted to visit the country for without a visa. 6 months is the most common length that they're good for, but for some types of travel in certain countries, it literally could be a year. Meaning, even if it did expire next year, you could still have been freaked. Opportunistic Dancer commented, yeah, I was going for a research visit to the UK. The trip was planned for December and my passport was expiring the following year, April, and I had to renew it. They wanted it valid 6 months after the visit. Our next story is, today I messed up by leaving my contact in for a week. Last Thursday, I, 19-year-old female, was in bed and I rubbed my eyes. I didn't think anything of it until I went to take out my contacts for the night and lo and behold, I can't feel anything in my left eye. I was pinching my eyeball and I only realized that there was nothing there when it hurt. I decide that I must have accidentally pushed it out when I was rubbing my eyes. Womp womp, but not a big deal because my other eye has the stronger prescription anyways. I love to complain, so I immediately complain to my roommate when I get back into my room, dorm. I'm searching my sheets, but I don't find anything. And I decide that I'm not going to find anything because it's literally a clear contact. I complain to my mom and sister that I'm missing a contact, but that I can't replace it with another from the box because I only have 4 weeks left of contacts, bi-weeklies. It's not that big of a problem. I've been on spring break this week. I've been living my life since last Thursday with only 1 contact in. My left eye sometimes feels like there's something in it, like an eyelash, but the feeling goes away when I rub my eye. Maybe it's just allergies. I feel like my vision is getting rapidly worse every night, and that's alarming. But I don't say anything because I can't get an eye appointment until April anyways. Insurance. At last, this last Thursday, yesterday comes, and I can finally change out my contacts for new ones. I put in the left one with no issue. Nothing feels out of the ordinary. I take a shower this morning. Everything is fine until I'm about to get out. There is for sure something in my eye, and it's not an eyelash, and no matter how much I rub, it's not fixing itself. I get out of the shower, look in the mirror, and what do I see? A contact. I open my case to be sure that I didn't just leave it in last night, and both contacts I wore yesterday are in the case. I take it out of my eye and just stare at it in disbelief. I don't know what pocket dimension shadow realm I sent it to when I rubbed my eye, but it had been in there for the entire week. I have been sleeping with it in every night, and I've been showering with it daily. I genuinely do not know how it hasn't gotten infected. I've accidentally napped in my contacts before and woke up feeling like my eyelids were glued shut. I don't even know how it's possible that I didn't notice it for a week. So I just gotta say, I'm a glasses wearer. I've thought about using contacts, but then I hear stories like this, and then I immediately loop back around to, maybe not. Besides the other kind of more obvious bonuses about glasses, which is like the ease of just take them off, put them back on. Depending on what type of contacts, it might just be cheaper to have glasses anyways. But I gotta say, I do envy not having to wear the glasses and also having just like the perfect whole field of view vision being corrected. Footballer62 commented, "Jesus Christ, this is my nightmare. There's a reason I wear glasses 100% and have never tried contacts. Glad you got that thing out and everything is good for you." Our next story is, today I messed up playing a video game with my kid. Not today, but back in January. I had posted this elsewhere, but my wife suggested I post here as well. When Call of Duty Black Ops 6 hit Game Pass around Christmas, I, 42-year-old male, took up playing a few rounds every day with my two youngest kids, 13 and 9-year-old males. We would play split screen on the Xbox Series S. One evening in early January, I spent about 2 hours playing with my 13-year-old, and I was stuck on the extra chair, the hard wooden dining room chair. When I got up, I had a bad case of numb bum. The next morning, my left butt cheek was sore. For about a week afterwards, I would wince every time I'd sit, but it slowly got better with the occasional phantom pain at night. Fast forward to last Wednesday when I'm in the kitchen and all of a sudden my leg feels wet. I check and there's blood on my hand. What? So I go clean up, no readily identifiable source, hop into the shower, rinse out my butt crack and go exploring. Freak. It feels like I might have a hemorrhoid. This inflamed patch from right next to my jerk running up my left cheek. At this point, I didn't connect the dots. I go into external hemorrhoids treatment mode per the advice of Mayo Clinic, keeping the area clean, showering after almost every crap, baby wipes if I can't shower, ice packs and Advil. By Friday, my office chair was a torture device. Over the weekend, I spend as much time lying down on my right side as possible, and by Sunday evening, it feels a little bit better. About noon on Monday afternoon, I realize I'm freaked. My left butt cheek has a hard lump in it the size of a fist. I have a fever and I'm nauseous. This wasn't going to resolve itself. Being the stubborn introvert that I am, I wait until Tuesday morning to go to the hospital. I arrive at the ER and sheepishly explain to triage what I think is happening. I tell the poor nurse that I think I have a hemorrhoid that's become infected. She takes my vitals, and to my surprise, I'm fast-tracked to a treatment room in under an hour. 8 to 12 hours is the usual wait time. A doctor comes in and asks me what's up, and I explain to him what's happening. He snaps on a pair of rubber gloves, grabs a package of lube saying that he thinks he knows what's going on. He has me curl up into the fetal position to do his exam. Moments later, I hear, "Huh, that's not what I expected," as he proceeds to jam his finger up my butt regardless. I don't have a hemorrhoid. I have a large perianal abscess. Off to CT scan I go after a round of blood work. A couple of hours later, a surgeon comes to introduce himself and perform his own exam. The CT scan had shown the abscess was at least 8 centimeters across. About 6 hours later, I'm laying in the surgical recovery ward trying to get comfortable when it hits me. The abscess was exactly where my butt hurt in January after the zombie session. It had opened up and become infected. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 zombies broke my butt. Not gonna lie, this is very personal, but a few years back, I actually had something very similar to OP. I had gotten a brand new office chair, and this office chair had this like weird wooden edge to it, even though it had a cushion, and basically it just dug into the back of my leg anytime I ever sat on it. The pressure was there, it eventually blew up, it looked like a crime scene. I didn't get like a CT scan or get rushed into surgery or anything, but it definitely took a lot of tender love and care to manage to heal everything back up. The ginger-beard man commented, "One Friday night I went for a drive. My butt was a bit sore, but I just worked legs and thought not much of it. By Sunday night, I could feel a tender lump and it hurt to sit. I too thought it was a hemorrhoid and got some over-the-counter meds. By Tuesday, I was in the worst pain of my life. I went to the ER in tears. The doc laid me down with my feet in stirrups like I was giving birth, gave me a bit of morphine, numbed the infected site, and started hacking away. I felt immediate relief. I had broken bones, torn ligaments, invasive surgeries, and this, by far, was the worst experience of my life. I'm nearly shaking right now just thinking about it. I feel for you, bro." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by getting the barista's number at Starbucks. I stopped at Starbucks on the way home from an appointment to get my wife a drink. Starbucks has started writing on all their drinks again, so I thought it would be funny to write a fake phone number on it and prank my wife. She's usually really clever and wouldn't fall for it, but it was worth a shot. I grabbed a Sharpie and wrote Christy with a heart over the I and a fake local phone number. I left the drink on the counter and went to my office to work. 10 minutes later, I hear, 'What the freak is this?' from down the hall. Almost immediately, I get a flurry of text messages asking who's the bench on her Starbucks cup. I'm giggling at this point. Got her, but I had a work call, so I couldn't run and tell her it was fake. In the middle of my meeting, she comes bursting in saying, 'I called Christy back. This number is fake, idiot. You're dead.' Flips me off and slams the door. Except I'm on video, and the other 20 people on my team are staring in disbelief. I can only imagine how that call went. 'What are you wearing, Christy from Starbucks?' Khakis." "She sounds hideous." "Babe, I swear, Christy meant nothing." Our next story is, "Today I messed up sending 32 emails to our professor in 1 hour. Yep, Saturday evening. Suddenly it turns out I have 36 hours to submit a scientific paper which involves Professor B. I've only met him once, online, when I was introduced to the group. All very formal. I spent the whole day working on the thing, and around midnight I started writing an email to him. I want to say that by that time I was exhausted. I thought it might be a good idea to just send it in the morning, but I just wanted to sleep without nothing in mind. If midnight sounds a weird time to receive or send an email, you're right, it is. I have nothing to add. I'm a compulsive draft saver. I lost a couple of manuscripts in the past, so since then I literally Control-S any change I make. When I was done, I sent it. The day after, late afternoon, still nothing to be heard from him, so I make a check in the sent folder just to be sure I actually did send it. Turns out Control-S stands for send with the brand new email application I just downloaded. So Professor B received the beauty of 32 emails between midnight and 1 a.m. showing the entire edit history of my email, including 3 emails in which I change only the object. This was beyond embarrassing, and I probably looked either drunk or completely dumb. The days after, I was in complete shame. Felt like a total idiot. Which I am. I was hoping all my emails ended up in the spam. Instead, a couple of days after, he replies very politely, supports all my ideas. No mention of the other 31 emails. What a gentleman. I'm gonna be there in 6 months, and I think half the people will joke on me for being the dumb idiot I am. I don't fault OP one bit for wanting to make sure that they save everything they can as soon as they can. I've been dipping my toe a little bit into some creative writing recently, and one of the things that really imprinted on me was when an idea pops up into your mind, make sure that you document that as soon as possible, and also don't rely on it only being on like a physical smart device. All of mine I put into a notes app that can be backed up into the cloud and synced across devices. Some people, they may prefer physically writing something down and carrying like a small notepad and a pen. Routine Eve commented, "Whoops. One time I sent 8 identical copies of an email to a computer repair shop because their website contact form did not include confirmation that the send button had done anything. The owner of the shop personally called me not even 10 minutes after I sent them like, You good? You seem desperate. Our next story is, today I messed up by not bringing my passport to check in at a hotel. This was not actually today, but back in December. I'm posting it now as a lesson to others to hopefully avoid anyone being in my situation, because it was not fun. So, back in December, I was on my first solo overseas trip. I was in Europe for a study abroad program, as my uni has a campus in Italy. On weekends, all of the students would leave our study abroad accommodations and go off to another Italian city. Since we had 3-day weekends and free reign, and Italy is easy to get around, a friend and I decided to go to Venice. When we met at our study abroad accommodation lobby before catching the train, she asked if I'd brought my passport, and I said, "Nah, I have a photo of it though, don't worry. We're only going to Venice for one night, so it'll be fine. I'd rather leave it locked in our accommodation and avoid it getting pickpocketed." So I thought. I've used photos of my passport as my ID many times when checking into hotels. I even had a live photo as proof that it wasn't doctored. Eventually, we got to Venice and were checking in when the receptionist at our hostel said that he would not be able to check us in as he needed to scan a physical passport. I had actually thought that he would only check my friend's passport, regardless of if I'd brought mine, as she's the one who made the booking, reinforced by the fact that this had been the case on the previous weekend's trip. Even though I did have my passport that time, it wasn't even checked. The receptionist said, "Don't panic, this happens all the time. Just go across the canal and get a declaration from the police that your passport is lost and we will check you in." I was like, okay. So I did. Felt terrible for my friend who had to wait an hour for me to return, but anyways, I got checked in. I was told by Venice police to make sure that I went to the police station immediately the next day when I returned to my study abroad city so that I could show the physical passport and unblock it. And yes, I did that. All was well. The cop said that my passport was now unblocked and gave me a letter declaring so. Everything was fine until I left the Schengen zone to visit the UK for New Year's Eve. At the Channel crossing, the border police said my passport is registered on the system as stolen. I was like, what? The cop said there was nothing wrong with my passport. The passport officer said, "Well, you're traveling with an illegal passport. You could get in trouble, but I'll let you through. Just go to the Aussie embassy in London immediately so they can give you an emergency passport." Of course, I did so. The officer at the embassy said, "Don't worry, on the Aussie system your passport is valid. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I don't know why the border person said that to you. I can't help you. You don't need a new passport." So I was relieved, especially considering Aussie passports are the most expensive in the world, nearly $500, and I had just gotten a new 10-year one right before my trip. So I thought maybe it had been a mistake at the border and everything was fine. Nope. When I went back into Schengen a week later, at the border, I was once again yelled at. They said they're legally supposed to confiscate my passport as it is illegal and says it's stolen. I was like, what, dude? I just went to the embassy and they said it has no problem. The police said, "We do not care, that is not what our system says. But we'll be nice and let you through just this once, but you need to go to the embassy again. Otherwise, the police will take your passport away from you. Seriously, they will arrest you and take your passport." Terrifying thing to say to a young solo traveler. So I went to the embassy as soon as I got to Paris. This time, I had a full meeting with consulate services, who told me that it was actually illegal for the Italian police to have tampered with my passport and declare it stolen or lost in the first place. Especially because it was never lost at all, but just in my study abroad hotel room. The officer gave me his business card and a paper with numbers of the Australian consulate so that if I was faced with harassment at the border again, I could tell the border police to call them and verify that my passport is, in fact, completely legal. I never had to go through a Schengen border again for the rest of my trip, though my passport was stamped when I left the EU, no questions asked. So I'll never know if I would have been yelled at again, but the problem is, the passport is probably still flagged on whatever system those border people were using, and I might have issues the next time I visit Europe, and I have no idea how to fix it, as it's fine on the Aussie system, all because I naively didn't bring my passport to a one-night stay in Venice. So the moral of the story is, bureaucracy sucks, and never ever go anywhere without your physical passport no matter what. It might result in absolute heck for the rest of your holiday. I'm not a person who's traveled around too much in this world, but it's definitely added another fear on my paranoia list. I'm just surprised that if you were checking into a hotel in Venice or whatever, you would need a passport. Then again, I guess I haven't really stayed at too many hotels either. Isn't it kind of like a thing though that like you go to a hotel, you give an alias? Like especially if you're some like big name celebrity, you can't really do that if you have to have your passport or whatever. SLJ7 commented, "Maybe a stupid question, but could you not have used your regular ID instead of your passport? I've never heard of hotels requiring passports as long as you have a physical piece of ID to show them. Your strategy should have worked if you had that. If you had no ID on you at all, that wasn't smart, and you should definitely avoid doing that, especially when you're in a different country. But they shouldn't demand your passport and no other form of ID. Either way, what a mess. Hope you don't face the same problem the next time you take a trip. Thanks for sharing." Our next story is, "Today I messed up not knowing signs of heart attack. Not today, but about 3 months ago. Husband woke me up breathing pretty heavy and I ask him if everything is alright. He says he's okay and blames it on pneumonia. I believe him for some reason, but sit up and ask him if he wants me to take him to the doctor. Says he's fine and we can wait until urgent care opens up later. I prop my pillow up because I can't go back to sleep now and keep an eye on him. He's still breathing pretty heavy, and when he sits up or props himself up it's better, but still not quite right. Are you sure you don't want me to call an ambulance? He moans and says yes, it's just pneumonia. He said he's had it before. I leave him alone for a little and we argue again, back and forth. I offer to call an ambulance or take him to the doctor. I tell him we really shouldn't wait until urgent care opens. Nothing. Leave him alone for a little bit. We're now at the 2-hour mark since I woke up. Argue back and forth again, and now he's starting to get lightheaded. Tells me maybe we should go to the hospital. I call an ambulance. Ambulance shows up 15 minutes later and loads him up for the hospital. Turns out he's having a STEMI AMI. They radio it into the hospital and we get there about 20 minutes later. They rush him to the ER. I get pushed to the waiting area and pace back and forth. Nurse comes out and asks me about heart and lung issues. None that I'm aware of. She goes back in the doors to the back, comes back a couple minutes later, and puts me in a private little room and tells me that they tried to shock his heart back into rhythm and was unsuccessful. He went into PEA and they tried CPR but were unable to resuscitate. Instantly break down. Guilt and regret just runs through my body. I tried to get him to the hospital, but I definitely could have and should have tried harder. He died from a massive STEMI. Don't know much about all the medical terms, but shows his HS troponin T was less than 10,000, and his pro-BNP was at 38,500. I am pretty numb, hate myself most days, can't believe I allowed that to happen, completely unable to function. I've taken a considerable bit of time off work, so much guilt and regret from it all. He was sick for a couple of days prior, but it just seemed like flu-like symptoms, sore throat, headache, exhaustion, and he always reassured me that it seems to be getting better. Also, reading through, I guess he told the nurses he was having chest pain as well, which he never told me that morning, and episodes of shortness of breath the past couple of days, which I never noticed. I've signed up for some first aid classes because I feel at my age, it's kind of ridiculous not really knowing any of the signs of a heart attack. First time I've ever had to call for an ambulance. Going to therapy multiple times a week, but the guilt will destroy me the rest of my life. All I needed to do was be a little more aggressive and a little more attentive, and he would have probably still been alive right now. Also, should have just ignored him and immediately called an ambulance. This story kind of makes me think about how a few years back, I went to some kind of specialist for some unrelated issue, and I remember they did basic office tests, oxygen rate, blood pressure, those kinds of things. And I guess I was having some kind of weird, concerning results popping up. I remember checking out and the receptionist was looking me in the eyes and saying, "Don't ignore it, go to the ER. If you're worried about money, you can do payment plans, you can make it work." I kind of had the fear of God drilled into me by this completely unrelated place. They just happened to do basic vital checks or whatever. And it kind of reinforced in my mind that mindset of if something does seem off, something seems concerning, even if mildly, maybe you don't necessarily need to call for an ambulance, but you should probably just go to the ER. Steampunked Unicorn commented, "I'm an ER nurse. I can't tell if someone's having a heart attack without hooking them up to a heart monitor. It's rarely a stereotypical chest clenching, shooting arm pain presentation. 9 times out of 10, symptoms are subtle and could be anything from acid reflux to a strained muscle. Even with my training, I'd probably have done the exact same thing you did. Stop beating yourself up. You did everything right. Magnet Hype commented, "I'm glad you said this. I'm a former EMT and I can't tell you how many times somebody complains of chest pain and shortness of breath. It's more often than not just a cold, panic attack, or that one time we got toned out for chest pain and shortness of breath, an old dude had a screwdriver sticking out of his lung. That was a fun call." Our next story is, "Today I messed up when I started driving while my wife was getting out. I urged my wife to get out in the parking lot before I parked to grab a table in a busy restaurant. I saw the car in front of me go and completely forgot my wife was still getting out, so I started going and she was tossed to the pavement in front of the entrance. I feel so terrible, disappointed, and embarrassed that I somehow forgot in a matter of seconds. I asked her to wear a skirt too, her poor knees. I've been burnt out with school and everything recently. Today especially is a very distracting day for me. I have ADHD really bad, so my mind wanders a worrying amount. This paragraph is just padding for the character count. My ADHD is no excuse." Edit, my wife's response was cordial and kind. Of course, she was upset in the moment because she was in pain and embarrassed, but she's fine, and the date isn't ruined, thankfully. So was OP literally in a matter of seconds like, get out, go get us a table, the spot's open, and just like immediately knocked her over? It's like excited Labrador puppy levels of brain processing. Huntin' Wabbits commented, "Bloody heck, that trumps mine." I started driving before the mother-in-law had got in the car fully. For about 5 seconds, she was sitting with legs out to the side like she was a gunner in a Huey helicopter. My wife brings it up now and again. Our next story is, "Today I messed up by matching on a dating app with a woman who believes children are being kidnapped at Disney World and being trafficked to billionaires. As a single professional millennial dude, of course I'm on dating apps. Recently matched with a super cute redhead that lives close by. A rarity. We have mutual friends and are close in age. Chatted for a few days, so when she friended me on Facebook, I figured why not accept? Then I saw the post. The post that said she was so happy Trump is deputizing all citizens to hunt child traffickers. I thought, that's out of pocket. So I asked her about it. She sent me a long message about how Jesus is working through Trump, who is stopping celebrities from farming a youth elixir from children kidnapped from Disney World. Apparently, Mickey Mouse is luring the children into the tunnels below the park. She continued to tell me about how she's already planning on going undercover into these organizations to save the children. As soon as I finished reading it, she deleted the message. I so wish I got a screenshot. So I asked her about Trump's relationship with Epstein, and thankfully that I did get a screenshot of. She wrote, "You're taking news at face value without doing the footwork to find out what else was going on. The things that keep me up at night and going to war every day are not the same things for you. And that's okay. If we see things differently, Epps Island, I believe, is for trafficked humans to be sacrificed and cut up and had hooked up with and then permanently destroyed. Missing forever. That's a cult, a deep state cult, and Trump has dismantled it. His work is speaking for him. You're reminding me of his past. I'm reminding you of our future. That's our president, put some respect on his name." After reading that, I blocked her, of course, but not before she told me I could find out what she said is true if I go to the dark web. Since she knows my full name and was friends with me on Facebook, she now knows where I live, my family, what I drive, and probably thinks I'm part of the conspiracy. So look, I'm usually not one to get political on either side, but what was anything that I just read? I think my brain would refuse to allow me to even try to begin to understand any of what she was talking about. With people like this out there, do the people who work as Disney mascots have to fear for their lives or something? Daedalus Raceland commented, "She sounds exactly like a friend who moved to America and started saying stuff like that, but I'm sure there's just many like her. I don't understand where this Trump is a savior of trafficked children thing comes from. But she claims that she was trafficked as a child, and what Trump is apparently doing is stopping others having to go through what she did in Australia decades ago. I've never heard of Trump doing this stuff except from these people. From the evidence I've seen, Trump and Epstein were friends, hung out a lot. Trump's proud to grab people by their private parts. Nothing about that sounds like someone dismantling trafficking rings and such. I just don't get it." OP responded commenting, I had one coworker tell me that while he wouldn't allow his minor children to be left alone with Trump, he was proud to vote for him. Our next story is, today I messed up by shaving my beard and terrifying my kids. Last night, I made a snap decision to shave off my beard. I've had it for most of my adult life, and the last time I was clean shaven was 6 years ago. This was just before my journey. I'd lost 70 kilograms. I figured, why not see how I look now? This morning, I walked out to greet my kids, excited to show them my new face. I called out that I had a surprise for them. My 3-year-old took one look at me, frowned, and asked, "What happened, Daddy?" before immediately retreating behind his mom, whimpering. It took a solid 20 minutes to convince him to even come near me. My 5-year-old, on the other hand, refused to speak to me at all, just kept shielding his face with his arm whenever I got close. He did not believe I'm his dad until I showed him a Snapchat filter with my beard grown back. Eventually, they started talking to me again, but it's pretty clear they're not fans of my new look. On the bright side, I do have a visible jawline now, and it doesn't look bad. It's definitely an improvement from when I was at my heaviest, but honestly, I think the beard suits me better. Without it, I look somewhere between Uncle Fester and a British football hooligan. I think it goes to show that if you have younger kids and you're gonna go and shave your beard or even maybe a mustache, you should probably make sure that they watch you as you start doing so. You gotta think about it from the kids' perspective. All their lives, which is 3 or 5 years, which isn't very much, they've come to see you and adore you and love you only in one way with that beard. It's probably like a point of comfort for a lot of kids. You know, dad with his big old beard, and then basically it's like a whole different person walked in and is like, "Hey, I'm your dad now, come love me." 10 Zipper commented, "My friend that I played pool leagues with for years had a beard the entire time I knew him. I asked him if he shaved it off any time, and he said he started growing it in college and had it when he met and married his wife. One day, after they had a couple of kids, he woke up and decided to shave it off on a whim. He got dressed and came out to the kitchen where the wife and kids were having breakfast. His girls cried, his wife laughed, and his dog growled at him." Our next story is, today I messed up by trying to DIY my eyebrows before a big meeting. So today, I decided I would save some time and money by shaping my own eyebrows before a huge work presentation. I'm usually pretty decent with makeup, so I figured, how hard could it be to tweeze a little here and there? Famous last words. I started off fine, but then I got a little too confident with the tweezers. I kept thinking, just one more hair, until I stepped back and realized one eyebrow was basically a skinny little tadpole while the other was still bushy. Panic set in. I tried to even them out, but it was like playing a losing game of eyebrow Jenga. Every pluck made it worse. In a desperate move, I grabbed an old eyebrow pencil to fill them in, but it was this cheap one I hadn't used in years, and it turned out to be a weird reddish-brown shade. So now I'm rocking one pencil-thin brow and one patchy auburn monstrosity. I had to zoom into this meeting looking like I'd lost a fight with a lawnmower, and my boss kept giving me this confused side-eye the whole time. Thankfully, my camera quality was bad enough that no one said anything, but I'm pretty sure my coworkers think I'm going through some avant-garde beauty phase. I'm booking a salon appointment tomorrow. Anybody out there, do your eyebrows exactly how you want to do them? But if you asked me, I feel like minimal is really all you need to do, as far as hair removal goes anyways. I get very basic framing or shaping or whatever, or God forbid you gotta get a few unibrows out of the way. But I don't know if I'm just a man being a man, but I've never really understood majorly thinning out your eyebrows or changing the shape, or even back in high school, people would shave their eyebrows off and just draw them on, which I felt 99% of the time didn't really work out. The best way I could describe it was it looked exactly like what it was, which is it looked like they used a marker and drew them back on. Canola Fly commented, "Once when I worked in a large corporate office, I forgot to draw on one eyebrow, and it was on a rare occasion that an also 20-something attractive man was in the office. Had to go wipe off the other one and look like Marilyn Manson for the day. I swear, eyebrows are such a huge focal point, and a lot of male creatures wouldn't know how much work goes into making them right. So maybe I was right, I am just a man." Eyebrow compliments have always been an important thing to me, and they always come from other women. OP responded commenting, "OMG, the Marilyn Manson look is so real. I swear, the one time you mess up, it's always when there's an attractive guy around. It's like the universe knows. And yes, only other women truly understand the struggle. Our next story is, today I messed up by saying, I love you to a friend. Male, 32, gay, a first-generation immigrant living in the US. The culture and language I come from, we show affection to everyone, strangers even. Those we consider friends, it's common to say we love them. I've lived in the US for 11 years, and it hasn't computed in my brain that this is not the norm here. Called another older, much older gay friend to wish him a happy birthday. We had a good chat. I ended the conversation with, I love you. And there was a pause. And the pause followed with, love to you too, from the other side. That pause bothered me. I told my husband what happened. He rolled his eyes and chuckled and said, we don't say I love you to our friends here, unless we're very close, and even that's weird between men. I was flabbergasted. Husband says I need to clarify this to my friend because I've made things awkward. I think I'm just going to hide under the covers and hope this awkwardness dissipates. Also, really bummed that English isn't as affectionate of a language. So I'm gonna be honest, I grew up in a household that didn't really say love you too much. So I'm just prefacing that it's not really something that I would go out of my way to say. That said, I've had numerous guy friends say I love you, and it's not in a romantic or a sexual way, and I've been more than happy to say it right back to them. I don't think it's a weird thing. I think it just depends on your relationship and your own personal preference. Like, to be honest, I feel like I would rather be able to say, yeah, I love my friend, rather than it always being some, oh, that's weird or icky, I can't say I love you to a guy. What's next? Saying that I want to bang him? NoPrint1433 commented, I have a friend who we always end our phone calls with, okay, love you, bye. And it all started because she said, I love you on the phone to me one day. We both started laughing and it just became a thing from there. It doesn't mean anything. We're just friends and it's a running thing now. It may not be as big of a deal as it is in your head. Also, today at work, someone came through for me big time and my response was, oh my god, I love you so much. I got a text that said, I love you too, but you already know that, lol. And I replied, of course I do. And we got a laugh out of it. I think it just depends on your relationship with your friends. Our next story is, today I messed up by using a water bottle from high school. So I went to the gym for the first time ever yesterday. I was really anxious and self-conscious the whole time. I realized halfway through that the girl on the treadmill next to me had a water bottle and I was like, oh, that's probably a good idea. Today I got ready. I decided to grab a water bottle. I have two, both from high school because since my job back then, I haven't really needed a water bottle. I'm in my second year of college. I grabbed one, inspected it to make sure it was safe to use by looking in the thing and checking the bottom of the lid. It looked fine, and so I filled it and left. My water bottle has a lid with a latch. Basically, you twist this little screw and flip the latch open. It's one of the Takea brand ones. This is important. I was on the treadmill walking, listening to music, and I go to open my water bottle. There was a small smell when I opened it, but I figured it was whatever. I opened it again 5 minutes later. The smell is stronger. I open it a third time, take a sip, finally look down, and there's mold coating the top, under the latch, and all over where you're supposed to put your mouth. I almost fell off the treadmill, I was so disgusted. I have a huge phobia of food poisoning and mold in general, and I'm wanting to throw up just thinking back on it now. I made it through the rest of my workout without issue, went back to my apartment, tried to scrub it off and put it in the dishwasher. I think I'm just gonna have to throw the whole thing out. Even if I can get the mold out of the water bottle, I'll never be able to get it out of my head. Now I'm just eating cereal, wondering why I didn't notice sooner, and mourning the loss of my water bottle. If I'm in OP's shoes, I don't care if that's the last water bottle that's gonna end up in the North Atlantic garbage patch that's gonna turn the tides against the climate and the whole world is gonna fall on its head. I don't think I'd be able to hold on to that water bottle after that point. That thing would be forever tainted. My brain would be like, there's micro fissures in the plastic and the mold is gonna be forever rooted in there, or some nonsense. I feel like the only way I would truly be able to get past it is if that thing was in like some scalding hot water, like many cycles over. Just Okay Memes commented, one time my manager had one of those green Gatorade bottles with the orange top. He used to always use it at work all the time. I get a call at 2 a.m. one day to cover him because he was sick, so work open to close, short-staffed. I said okay and did it, hard day. Anyway, it turns out he never bothered to wash the dang bottle. There was black mold covering the whole bottom of it. doctor said if he had kept drinking from it, he could have died. Anyway, that's my water bottle story. OG Likeable Fellow commented, "It's like, how? Do you not have a nose? Do you never smell something off? I mean, I get it's gradual, but like my water bottle gets funky smelling just from like my saliva sometimes." Our next story is, today I messed up by betting on one more hand of blackjack. This did in fact happen today. I was at the casino playing blackjack and losing as one does. There was another woman next to me who was losing a lot more money a lot faster because she kept putting huge money on the side bets and almost nothing paid out. We were joking about hanging hard, ride or die together, etc. Eventually, I'm mostly cleaned out. I have $14 left and the table minimum is $15, so I guess I can't bet. But the helpful dealer says, "You can bet with that, we won't tell anyone." So I do, and I immediately lose. Oh well, there goes his tip. I hang around for just a few more hands to watch how the woman does, and she keeps losing up to $100 per hand. Just as I'm about to leave though, she starts getting upset. She starts telling off the dealer because he let me bet with $14, which completely ruined the shoe and led to her losing hundreds and hundreds of dollars. This bet should have never have been allowed, and so they need to ... and get her money back. She never explains what they're supposed to do, just that they need to fix it. She demands that the dealer pull up the cameras. She calls over 2 pit bosses. I try to leave, but she tells me to stay and support her, and I'm too awkward to say no, so I just stand there awkwardly as she's raising her voice at everyone around her. At one point, she looks at me and says, "Why aren't you saying anything?" As if I have any understanding of what the casino is supposed to do. Eventually, I have my fill of listening to a probably drunken jerk, and I discreetly ask one of the pit bosses if I can just leave. The pit boss apologizes, and I take off, with no plans to gamble again anytime soon. I was gonna say, it's kind of nice that other people can kind of serve as that example so that you know not to like gamble out of your mind, or maybe even just like inspire you not to gamble. But I was gonna say it kind of sounded like OP knew what they were doing. It just kind of sounds like to me OP went in there with a limited amount of money, knew they probably were walking away with none of it, whittled it down to the $14, got one free throw in, walk away having had fun just playing. Till, well, you know, this whole other person. Thanks for ruining it, OP. $14 hander. Our next story is, today I messed up by calling out my coworker for cheating on his fiancée with my friend. This event happened a little over a month ago, and while things at work have settled down, and I admit I made a mistake, I still don't feel resolved about everything. I've worked with my 25-year-old female coworker, 27-year-old female, since 2023. We were always friendly, but I didn't start getting close with her until we started working together in the same classroom this year. About 6 months ago, a new guy started working at our school site. He was great with the kids and attractive, but I heard offhand that he had a fiancée. I didn't think much of it until a few months ago, one of the teachers in my classroom commented that my coworker, let's call her Ella, and my new coworker Sam would make a great couple as they stood side by side talking during a work potluck. I mentioned, "I thought Sam has a fiancé," but my coworker assured me that he did not. Another coworker, 3 of us outside Ella, was also in on the scoop, and I mentioned the same comment I overheard, that Sam had a fiancé, but she also debunked it saying, "I never heard anything about that." It was a few weeks after this that Ella and I started communicating outside of work, and I learned more about her life, which was very tragic. The more I learned about her, the more I liked and admired her, but I also learned that she had some pretty intense anxiety for good reason. It became shared knowledge between my other 2 coworkers that we were rooting for Ella and Sam to get together. After winter break, Ella told me that she and Sam had been texting and meeting up before work for 3 months, and expressed anxiety about our workplace finding out. I didn't realize that they had gotten to that stage of talking, and confirmed to her that it wasn't obvious at all, and that our workplace probably wouldn't be very strict about fraternization. She continued to go on about how seriously Sam took this policy, and how he didn't want things to become serious because of the risk to his job. It made Ella very anxious and stressed out to the point where she told me she wanted to end things over it. I told her that the risk of something bad happening probably wasn't worth the risk of ending something possibly good, and for her to make sure it wasn't underlying fears that made her want to end things. She told me she was certain on breaking stuff off because if anything happened to Sam's job, she would feel terrible. I supported her in her decision, but she later told me when I followed up about it that he didn't let me, lol. Shortly after this, my first coworker called me in a tizzy because of something concerning she had heard. She had spoken to another male coworker about how his relationship with his wife, both work on site with us, was affected by the no fraternizing policy. This male coworker, quick to deduce the reasoning for this line of questioning, asked if this had anything to do with Sam and Ella. My coworker said, "What if it did?" And the male coworker says seriously that he has it on good authority that Sam is engaged, and that he has spoken to Sam directly about the engagement. My coworker, distressed, talks to both me and my other coworker about it, and how, if it's true, will we tell Ella, who is anxious? I voted that we tell her directly, but my two coworkers didn't want to upset her, and instead decided that they would tell her to create distance because of conflicting work issues, and not mention the unconfirmed potential fiancé. That decision didn't sit well with me, but my attempts to convince my coworker to do otherwise didn't work. So I agreed not to say anything about it, until the next day during the weekend, Ella excitedly tells me that she asked Sam out on a date and it went really well. I tried to act positive about it, but it felt so disgustingly fake that I had to say something along the lines of, "I don't want to say anything, but I think you should pursue this relationship carefully." Which brought out a round of, "Wait, why would you say that? Did something happen?" I told her I didn't want to say, but then she said she was freaking out. "Please tell me, I'm thinking the worst." And I told her about what we suspected, but didn't know for sure. She became understandably upset and said if it was true, she would never be able to show her face at work again, and that she would talk to Sam about it. I also informed my coworker that I messed up and spilled the beans, and she essentially sighed and shrugged. I felt pretty awful on both counts. One, that I didn't keep to my agreement, and two, that I needlessly stressed out Ella, who needed no additional stress in her life. Ella later texted me and said she spoke with Sam and, no, he's single, and I was suspicious but expressed that I was relieved for her. Come Monday, my worker texts me the morning before I came in that she has news to discuss with my other coworkers and I in person. She found pictures of Sam's wedding registry for April and a picture of him holding a sold sign with his fiancée in front of their house. I felt absolutely sick with anger, just furious because how freaking dare he? I have big old-fashioned ideals about truth, loyalty, and justice, and the idea of Sam conning both his fiancée and my friend made me see red. My coworkers were just in shock and they wanted to not say anything and stay out of their business, while I insisted that Ella deserved to know. They didn't want to stress her out, and they also didn't want her to know that they had been doing some digging behind their back. I don't remember expressly agreeing to this, but in the light of how much I stressed out Ella the first time I mentioned anything, I decided not to tell her directly. That day, Sam came into our class to work with the kids, and I felt so full of anger towards him. I thought about following him outside to speak with him directly, but dismissed it. Later, after coming out of the restroom, I saw him walking with his student, someone he's training in his position, and without having any idea what the heck I planned to say, I jogged over to him. I spoke very positively and casually to him, and the moment is seared in my mind, so I think the conversation close to word for word was, "Hi Sam, can I speak with you for a moment?" He agrees and faces me, with his student standing a few paces away. I consider asking him to speak privately, but that seems like making it a big deal. In hindsight, I wish I had asked to speak privately. Dude, I can't believe how bullheadedly I handled this conversation, but this is how it went. "Do you know Cass?" Fiance's name. He replies, "Who?" I say Cass. "Cass' last name?" He says, "Yeah, I know her." I ask, "Is she your fiancé?" He replies, "What? Is she your fiancé?" He says, "Yes, how did you—" I cut in, "I looked up your wedding registry. You're getting married in April?" He replies, "Oh, yeah," confused, chuckling. I say, "Congratulations." He says, "Thank you," and I cut in, "Does Ella know?" Dead silence. The smile drops from his face. He stares intently at me for like 3 seconds. I stare hard back. I'm fueled by self-righteous anger. He says, "No." I tell him she should know. More silence, and then he says without breaking eye contact, "We need to talk." I reply, "We're talking right now." He said no, Ella and I need to talk. I think I said something like, "That's a good idea, thanks for talking with me," and he says, "You're welcome." And without looking at a student who has been standing awkwardly behind Sam this whole time, I walk slowly back to my class, my heart slamming and my hands shaking. I go back to class feeling so out of it, like I couldn't even comprehend what I just did. I look back at coworker number 2 and she can tell by the look on my face that something's up, and I just shake my head. Later, I admit I spoke to Sam and she is flipping out, laughing and getting excited. Her positive reaction makes me feel a little less freaked out about it, and after I explain exactly what I said to both of them, they both cheer me on. "You're my hero," and that I handled it well. Well, an hour later, Ella comes up to me, anxious as freak, saying, "Did you talk to Sam?" I'm stunned, then I notice coworker number 2 behind her looking somber. I said yes, and she makes a gasp of shock and horror. She asked about what I said, and I told her that it would be best if she had heard it directly from him. She asked if I mentioned her name, and I shamefacedly admitted to that as well. She leaves in a fluster, and I feel dread down to my stomach the entire day. I apologize to her during my class after work, to which she replies, "I'm not angry at you, I just wish you hadn't used my name." I apologized more, feeling like an absolute idiot. She never replies. Coworker number 2 texts to ask if I'm okay. I admit I'm feeling stressed and stupid for messing up, and she leaves me on red. I stress about the whole scenario all night long. I talked to my family and my best friend about it, and they said while my heart was in the right place, I shouldn't have interfered and not to let it get to me. I was so upset about what happened. I didn't sleep, and it wasn't until about 6 a.m. that I stopped guilt-tripping myself and realized if I was in Ella's shoes, I did what I would have wanted a friend to do for me. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said anything, and if I could take it back, I would, but I acted according to my morals. It helped me feel much more centered. Sometime during my anxiety-ridden night, I had texted coworker 1 about how awful I felt, and that morning she asked if I would like to call and talk about it. I already felt much calmer and agreed, but when she called me, she spent 20 minutes telling me a story about how she messed up with a friend and how she felt terrible, but that she learned from the experience in the long run. 10 minutes into that conversation, I was shocked that she didn't really mention her involvement at all, didn't ask me how I felt, and somehow turned this whole fiasco into a reflection of a lesson she had already learned. She told me to let Ella come to me and that she would forgive me eventually. I told her I appreciated her and her story and left it at that, but I felt let down by our conversation. The day at work, no one spoke to me about what happened, and the same thing happened the following day, and the rest of the week, and the following week. I felt like I had lost 3 friendships that day. I felt a little bit like a social pariah, even though no one did anything to really exclude me. We just all pretended like it didn't happen, but they continue to talk about it, just without me. A few weeks later, I finally reached out to Ella to apologize for overstepping. She said she wasn't mad and that Sam really was single and that he'd lied to me about being engaged because he was put on the spot. Coworker 1 had shown Ella pictures of Sam with his fiancée, so I don't know how she played that off. She said she also hoped what happened wouldn't affect my view of him. I told her I respected him in a professional manner, but either he was a cheater or a liar, and either way, I didn't respect him as a person. She never responded, and that was the end of it. I ended up looking up the wedding registry later in the hopes of being able to contact his fiancée and let her know the situation, after being advised to by my close friends, but Sam had locked it and taken down their photo, and I was never able to find his fiancée's social, so I just let the matter lie. As of now, over a month later, Sam and I don't make eye contact, and my coworkers and I don't talk about it, but it still weighs heavy on me, feeling like I lost something special with all 3 of these people because I no longer trust them. I would imagine most people hearing the story would agree that OP ultimately did the right thing. I feel like most people, me included, if I was in a situation where things were getting serious and I was potentially getting with somebody and then all of a sudden these concerns pop up and they're like, there's a no fraternizing rule and I'm worried about our job, and then all of these rumors about a fiance come out, I would want to know the truth. It sucks because of the damage caused to those relationships, but ultimately OP I think can sleep easy knowing they did the right thing. I don't think OP did a darn thing wrong, and if they want to continue being ignorant in the hopes of something that's not real, And by extension, ruining those relationships with OP, that's really kind of on them. Kakuza commented, "Look, as weird as you feel, you did the right thing. It's better to have a weird relationship with coworkers than have close friends who are doing shady things like having an affair on their spouse. Good friends are people you can trust. Friendships are much better when the person's actions morally align with your values. Don't ever sacrifice your morals for comfort or just to keep people around. It's not worth it. I'm proud of you for acting the way you did." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Redditor mess-up story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.